When life gets unpredictable, preparation matters. In medicine, it's all about staying alert, ready for whatever comes through the door. On the road, it's no different. That's why Volvo designs vehicles to help anticipate risk, reduce harm, and protect lives. The Volvo XC90's advanced safety systems inspire confident decisions wherever the road takes you. The Volvo XC90, for life. Proud sponsor of the Pit Podcast. Learn more at volvocars.ca/safety.
In your scenario, you better be careful what you wish for.
Vivre ensemble is to build bridges to connect more than build wall to divide.
And some Anglos want Quebec to separate.
There are more unicorns in Quebec than Anglophones.
I have met them. I've never seen a unicorn.
The Big Five on the Elias Mecco Show. Brought to you by investment advisor Richard Lapointe of CIBC Wood Gundy. Richard Lapointe can always be reached at 847-6324.
Oh, you remember that big snowstorm we had? Seems like forever, right? Well, not if you drive certain streets in this city, because a lot of the snow still hasn't been picked up. Just one of the things we'll discuss on the Big Five. Joining me this morning on the Big Five, Trudie Mason. Good morning.
Good morning.
And he is a special advisor to Projet Montréal and the mayor of Montreal. Oh, good timing on some of these topics. Jimmy Zoubris on the panel.
Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, Trudie, Jimmy, let's start off with Justin Trudeau. And the Prime Minister has canceled a trip to the Caribbean, a diplomatic trip, in order to get votes for a seat on the UN Security Council. Last week, it was last Friday on this show, where I took issue with Justin Trudeau and the fact that he hadn't cut his trip short, that he took to Africa, and he was in Germany. And I was like, why isn't this guy back at home dealing with these rail blockades, these port blockades, right? As the Wet, Sweat, and Solidarity protests continue in this country. Over the weekend, National Post, I know they're not his friend or anything, but did you see the front page of the National Post over the weekend? Photo of Trudeau with leaderless, right? Referring to this country. So, this is an unforced error, right? This guy should have known better. He should have come back earlier, and I guess he's proving it today by canceling this trip short.
I got to agree with you. I think that maybe he underestimated that he probably thought that this was, because don't forget the original, if I remember correctly, about a week ago, there was like two guys who were just blocking one of the rails. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like a big group, but this seems to have escalated quite quickly. And it's become a much bigger, and and today I even heard one of the elders saying, you know what, we stand in solidarity because from Cognawaga here, because they stood with us 30 years ago with Oka and everything. So I think we're at the point where the Canadian economy is about to suffer huge, and we're already suffering. I think I heard something like there's $10 billion worth of goods that are just stuck in BC that can't move from there. So he's got to be back, and he's got to handle this. This camp, as much as the ministers are quite qualified and can handle this. I mean, the Prime Minister has to intervene on this very, very quickly, or else the Canadian economy is going to suffer a lot more. It hasn't suffered yet. I think we're at the beginning of those stages, but I think we're at the breaking point right now.
Well, I think what happened is that CN had to suspend its eastern rail traffic, and then VIA shut down everything across the country. That's what happened. That happened on Thursday, and that's when it became urgent that he attend to it. But let's not forget the optics. The optics, this next trip that he was supposed to be leaving on today, Barbados. I'm sorry. In February, the optics of the PM winging his way down to Barbados, that would really put him in a lot of hot water.
If he was going to Siberia, he would have gone on the trip?
Or Iceland or Greenland or,
I think he canceled the trip no matter what. I think that's how bad he's looking.
But you know what? They're being very careful. Because if you look at the statement from the feds about what the Prime Minister is going to be doing today, he's going to be meeting with this incident management team, with the senior cabinet minister and the bureaucrats, the key bureaucrats and stuff, to discuss not the Aboriginal claim, not the pipeline question, not the Wet'suwet'en. They're talking about the infrastructure blockade. And I think that is the message that's being sent to BC. I don't think the feds the Prime Minister doesn't want to go and meet with the hereditary chief chiefs of the Wet'suwet'en, because the feds don't honor them. They don't recognize them. They deal with band councils. So the prime minister in my view, ain't going to be going. He may send a minister. He may go into the region and meet with some elected band officials. I don't see him going there face to face the way the hereditary chiefs want. They're demanding Justin Trudeau or the Governor General.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you there that it can't always be the Prime Minister, but he has to be here to deal with this. And that's where the optics are bad. It's not even the question of Barbados. You're right. Barbados would look, God forbid there would be a photo tomorrow morning of Justin Trudeau on the beach while this was going on here. But we're at the point where the Canadian economy is about to suffer big time. Like Trudie said, I think was it Thursday or Friday that they cut off all the rail across Canada?
Yeah, I think when we
it was Thursday because we talked about it on Friday.
That's it. Yeah.
So you're talking about 3 days where nothing has moved in this country.
The mistake was letting it get to this point, right? Somebody should have intervened over a week ago.
I think it's also
when this started on the 6th or the 7th, when this stuff started. The fact that it has been allowed to snowball, now you can't do anything about it. Now you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. What can you do besides bringing in the cops or bringing in military people to physically remove these people?
Well, that's what precipitated the other. You'll remember that this only picked up steam across the country when the Mounties went in and started making arrests in BC. So that's already happened. And you can imagine if we get a situation where they go in again and it escalates out of control and there's all kinds of violence. I mean, we remember here in Montreal the Oka crisis and how it started with the SQ going into Kanesatake.
And if you listen to Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller, who says there's been modest progress, he references the Oka crisis and he says, hey, we don't want to go there. Well, so if you don't want to go there, right? And I'm nobody wants to go there. How do you? At a certain point, the trains need to run. So what do we do? At a certain point, the trains need to run. Cargo needs to go from point A to point B. How are we going to get out of this? Listening to the tape we heard, and during the newscast this morning, we've heard this tape, right? This tape that was recorded in the meeting with Mark Miller doesn't sound to me like there's a solution anywhere near a solution.
Well, there's also that you're dealing with the band council, and then you're dealing with the elders. And I found out, and I'm no expert on this subject, that these are two different groups, and they don't even agree on this issue. So you're going to have to talk to the band elders, which are, I guess, the elected representatives of the band, and then you got to talk to the band group, or I'm not sure what the name is exactly, and then the hereditary elders, which are the ones which seem to be controlling this issue, and they're the ones that seem to have all the power in this, and they only want to meet the Prime Minister. Now, I get it that the Prime Minister is not just going to jump down because somebody says, I want to meet with you, but the negotiation on this, you're absolutely right, is not going to take a day or two, right? Unless you bring in the army. So we're at a standstill for the next few days on this issue, and this is where I think the federal government probably, underestimated or wasn't clear about who was actually calling the shots on this issue.
Can you imagine a scenario where this gets solved in time?
Well, the Oka crisis was solved with negotiation. There was
how long did that take, though?
Yeah, it took a long time. But let's face it, Aboriginal people need gas to put in their vehicles, right? Mm-hmm. They need propane too. They need all the goods they're especially here in Quebec with their territory so close to urban centers. They enjoy the luxuries of urban life the way everyone else does, right? Yeah. So they're going to start feeling the pinch when we start feeling the pinch.
Now, let's play a bit of audio here. This is from that meeting over the weekend with Mark Miller, the Indigenous Services Minister, and this, I guess, was taped without his knowledge.
Because what happened to them last week is exactly what was done to us right here. And this is our land. We're not off the reserve. And you put train tracks on our land. And you put Highway 2. It was the first major highway on our land. And then you put the 401 on our land. But it's our land.
So, I just don't see a way out, guys. I'm actually worried about how this is going to play out. What's the worst case scenario here?
Worst case scenario is the army moves in, and we're left with a situation like Oka a few years ago. But except now that there seems to be a sort of solidarity across the land, right? So,
what should be Trudeau's role? What role should he be taking in this?
Well, he's got to be the statesman in this. I mean, he's got to send his ministers. They got to negotiate. Or
he's been sending them in ministers. Now he's here. What role should he take?
That's a tough one. I think at some point he may have to actually meet with him if we want things to move across. And I know that it's tough. Not everybody can just, you just can't say the prime minister jumps into every situation. But I think it's reached the point where the economy's at stake.
I think there's already a movement within the Aboriginal community to some degree. That the point has been made, and let's dismantle the blockades. Mm-hmm. We heard Serge Simon, who's the Grand Chief of Ganasatake in Oka, saying that. We've heard that from some elected leaders in Belleville, for example, in the Mohawk territory there. And I think it's going to build up steam. Sarah Simon is saying that the non-Aboriginal population has learned a lot about the Aboriginal reality in recent years. What missing and murdered Aboriginal women. There's been the residential schools and all of the testimony about that was so wrenching. And he says you risk if you keep this blockade up, you risk squandering that goodwill. So I think they're already in the Aboriginal community. They're seeing the limit of that type of protest, and I think that's when the blockades are going to come down. The Wet'suwet'en, their blockade is of the pipeline. Mm-hmm. All the sympathy blockades are by other Aboriginal groups and in some cases supporters of the Wet'suwet'en, and I think they're a lot easier to negotiate.
The stories the office is buzzing about. The Big Five on the Elias Macco Show.
We're back here on the Big Five. Trudie Mason and Special Advisor to Projet Montréal and the Mayor of the city, Jimmy Zoubris, is in studio this morning. Just a few seconds, we'll tell you what borough looking at adding 7,000 parking meters. But first, let's talk about the snowstorm. Yeah, the snowstorm happened on February 7th. And as I was driving around the city this weekend, I was in Côte-des-Neiges, and I was shocked by how much snow there was left. There's still streets in this Ville-Marie borough that haven't been cleaned. I went through even places like Outremont, and I was like, wow, there's still snow on the ground. We're 10 days later, guys. Is this just, okay, it was a bad storm and it's acceptable? Or do you think there's, we are doing a poor job here? Jimmy, I know you're, what are you going to say? You're with Projet Montréal. What are you going to tell me to justify this?
Everything went fantastic.
Everything's fantastic, huh?
No, look, the Friday, it was the first snowfall. It seems that there was a good job in terms of clearing, right? Because the first thing is you clear and then you pick up, right? But then Monday we got hit with the 15 centimeters. It wasn't 15 centimeters. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. I heard it was 15 centimeters.
Yeah. It was a lot more than I think everyone expected.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was bad. Now, I looked also this morning at the stats like you did. Everybody's in the 90-plus range except two boroughs. One was Sud-West and one was Lachine. Lachine was like at 88 or 89%, and the Sud-West was like at 78 or 79%. So they're all in the 90%. But it seems that those 50 centimeters that we got overall in the few days, I mean, they basically, look, it takes a week to clear, and that's what happened. It was just the first few days where everything was going well, and bang, you got hit with this. There's no excuses. I hate it, too. I get stuck like everybody else. It cripples the local economy. Mm-hmm. It cripples our ability to move around. But it's part of the reality of living in Montreal, and unfortunately, it takes a week to clear snow. That's Trudie, what it is.
You also give the pass here?
I'm giving the Plante administration a pass, and how often do I do that? Yeah. and I think it is because that second snowstorm was considerably more than what was expected. I was working that day, and I remember the forecast went from 5 centimeters to 5 to 10 centimeters to 10 to 15 centimeters. Yep, right. And it was a lot more. And when I think it's what is the city's yardstick is more than a certain number and they have to start plowing, right?
Right, but we had reached that on Friday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it still wasn't clear, but it also meant that they were trying to do 2 operations simultaneously, because it's a very different operation when you're actually snow blowing and trucking the stuff away rather than just plowing.
See, one of the things that I was told the other day was when they started clearing the first day, then they had to go back on Monday and re-clear the same streets twice before touching other streets, because that's where, let's say, buses pass, right? So you let's say you did the first clearing on Friday and Saturday, then you got to go back on Monday to do the clearing. And then what happened is that this snow got all pushed on the sidewalks, and they were telling me that there was so much snow on the sidewalk that those little chagnettes, those little snow plows, couldn't pass. They couldn't handle the
it
amount
also
of
got a lot colder, and I think it all
Yeah.
froze up, and it's bad for the equipment when that happens.
Okay, guys, let's talk about Rosemont, La Petite Patrie. They're looking at adding 7,000 parking meters. This is a borough that has around 1,000 parking meters right now. So I guess the question I have, we know what they did in Outremont, right? Outremont now, it's every spot is a quote-unquote paid parking spot. They've made changes in that borough. We see the changes that have been made with the vignettes. Guys, what does parking look like in the city of Montreal in 5 years?
Well, the first thing is that story that you said about the 7,000 spots of parking in Rosemont Petit Patrie, which is a really big borough. It represents about 25% of the borough. Now, the mayor never asked to put the 7,000 meter. What he did was he asked us in Montreal to look at the possibility. And let's suppose that they were to say tomorrow morning, we want to do all the 7,000. It wouldn't be done in one day. It wouldn't be done in 1 week. This would be a project over a number of years, right? And so your question is quite valid. Or they may just say, we want to do the 3,000, not the 5,000. So your question is very valid. I think in Montreal, more and more, or particularly in the center city, there's going to be less and less available street parking.
And do you think in 5 years, if Projet Montréal, let's say, gets a second mandate, we look forward 5 years from now, every single street parking spot in the city of Montreal has a value attached to it, and you're paying?
Not every, because you still have to give some parking available for the people who don't want to get vignettes or second or third car.
Well, make those meter spots. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to go from 1,000 to 8,000 in this borough.
No, the case of Outremont is a little more particular because they just had.
Why is it more particular? I drove through
because they're having the campus mill go there, and there's a lot of people that now are using the street, and they wanted to make sure that there was enough parking for residents. The plan is still, it obviously has to be worked or evaluated. You look at where you live in Ville Marie, and I know we spoke about this last week, and I know you spoke about this last week. I believe there's still 30% of available parking free in the Ville Marie, which is the downtown core area. So,
but why wouldn't Ville Marie go towards an Outremont type plan? Like, why wouldn't they? If it's
because it's not in the plan. Because you got to look at it. It's not one size fits all, right? You can't be, the other things we asked for, which have been in the works for years here, and now finally we're starting to move, is the modulated parking, right? So the parking rates can vary depending on the day, especially for the downtown core. So you want to go out on a Tuesday night, you don't want to pay the $3.25 an hour. You want to pay $2 an hour. Or you want the person to say, look, I'm going downtown. I understand I got to pay for parking, but I'm not willing to pay $7 just to go have a $3 coffee. So these are the things that we got to start looking. The other app has to be available to show where there's available parking downtown, especially on side streets, because we found that a lot of side streets downtown. I'm using the downtown core. Obviously, as you get away from the downtown, parking is metered parking is less of an issue, but it's becoming more and more. There's 2% more cars every year in the area, and unfortunately, if you look down the road, I think at 5 years. You're starting to see now even boroughs that aren't with Montreal that are saying we got to do this or we got to add vignettes.
Well, I agree that there has to be parking management in areas where there's scarcity. But what I don't want to see is metered parking or neighborhood vignette parking that comes with the price tag attached to it simply for ideological reasons to discourage people from owning cars. I don't think that's the place of a municipality to start off with. And I don't like being pushed around, and I don't like being billed when there's no scarcity. So I don't want to see that in, I can't imagine in Pointe-aux-Trembles on residential streets them introducing a vignette system or a meter system when there's always plenty of parking, or in my neck of the woods out in Pierrefonds.
But the city says what's the number they've attached to it?
$1,000.
$1,000 is what the maintenance on any single street.
And what do we already pay taxes for?
I know. That's what I think. But if you look at what's happened in every single borough, there's been measures like this, right? So
that's because you have an ideologically driven administration, unlike probably any administration, maybe since the MCN.
Well, you can say that, but it was also happening before. This is nothing changed now. I mean, it wasn't us that put in toll bridges, right? Or asked. Even previous administrations have asked for this.
That was a toll bridges back in the day. That was a money grab to pay for infrastructure.
Now they're coming back more and more.
That wasn't to discourage people from getting in their cars and using their cars.
That was the idea is for the money to be used in terms of vignettes. It's actually quite interesting because vignettes usually is the demands of the residents. I know where I live in NDG, we didn't have vignettes up till a few years ago, and we asked for it because
I agree you should get them
because the restaurants around the stores around Sherbrooke were becoming more and more popular, and we were having trouble finding parking. So it's something that the residents ask for.
The Outremont model is the one that's interesting to me because I was driving through Outremont this week. I was taking side streets, and these were residential streets. And it's so ugly, the new sign, because they have to put a sign everywhere. Like every few meters, there's a sign to remind everyone you need to have a vignette. So you've taken these beautiful streets, like the streets of Outremont, they used to be pristine, and now you've put these ugly signs every 10 meters or so. You've got these signs to remind people. And that wasn't a place that had scarcity of parking, right, in those residential streets. So that's why I'm looking at this and I say, man, I think they're going to go more towards this. No matter where you are, there's a price affixed to that quote-unquote free street parking. There's going to be a price. I think that's what we're headed to in 5 years. I'm not saying it's right, but if I look forward 5 years, it's going to be more of the Outremont model than anything else. Okay.
I'll let you finish with that. I'll give you that one.
All right. What else on the docket here? Okay, official opposition. Let's talk about the let's talk about the opposition at City Hall. They're putting forward a motion to limit recent protests in retail stores. Extinction Rebellion going into clothing stores. We've seen anti-meat activists go into restaurants and disturb people eating their dinner. What do you think about this motion that the opposition is going to be putting forward? Is it something, they did something very similar, by the way, in the National Assembly, passed unanimously. So why not at City Hall?
Look, at the same time, I saw the motion. I can't disagree with you. I mean, these are protesters who went into a restaurant, a well-known restaurant in one case during dinner time and started marching around, protesting around, and we saw the other one with the clothing store. I think people have a right to protest. If they were to protest outside, I wouldn't like it because I somehow, being a store owner, I feel for that person. But going into the place, I think, goes way too far. I think that there are limits, but it's already in the law, right? I mean, this is a bit of the opposition grandstanding a little. Yeah, I don't disagree with it, but at the same time, we're reaching a point now where there's more and more people are trying to find more and more ways to get viral content on social media, and they feel that this is one of the ways. I got to disagree with their methods.
Yeah, I disagree with the methods too, but I do think that the opposition can go to bat for it all they want. I don't think it's a big deal. I do think though that the power is in the hand of the business owner. So if these people come into the restaurant, if you see them walking in and they've got placards, you immediately say, you are not welcome in here with your placards. You must leave. If they don't go, you call the cops and have them all charged with trespassing. And I know why businesses don't want to do that is because they feel they're going to come to work the next morning and the windows are going to be smashed or a Molotov cocktail is going to come flying through.
I think in the case of Canada Goose downtown, if I remember correctly, I think they even glued themselves or taped themselves to the window, like it went even further. And this one here, you're absolutely right.
It's handcuffs. To me, that's handcuffs. And I think business owners are well within their rights to say, you know what, go out on the sidewalk, feel free to do it there, but you come inside and you're going to be arrested.
And at the same time, you know what? If you protest a McDonald's, if you protest a Royal Bank, with all due respect, I really don't care. These are big guys. In some cases, I know that these were well-known restaurants and successful restaurants, but you're still protesting the little guy.
Last word to Jimmy Zoubris. Thank you, Jimmy. Trudie Mason, always a pleasure.